Welcome back, everyone. Today's video we're working on this Mantis Tiller, and it just won't idle properly. When you squeeze the throttle it kind of bogs out, so I'm going to take it apart, clean it up. Chainsaws, trimmers, push mowers, I do this stuff all the time. Chainsaws, trimmers, push mowers, now it's time for the neighborhood go-to guy. Alright, so what I really like about this is it's easy to get to everything. So we'll take the wing nut off, the air filter cover, pull that off, air filter itself. To get down here, we're going to take off 2 Phillips screws. That'll give us access to take off the carburetor. Okay, then we can go ahead and we'll just keep the one finger on the carburetor to keep that from pulling off completely. And once that last screw is unthreaded the whole way, just slip that cover out, set it aside. And if you look back here, you can see the throttle linkage. Just pull up on that and out that will come. And then back here we have 2 different fuel lines. I'm going to take the cap off, or just loosen a little bit. That'll take off the pressure, and as long as the fuel is not up too high, it won't continue to dump out. If it is full, you could empty this ahead of time or pinch the line. But from here, we can just slowly twist that off. And if it's on there really tight, you might need like a needle nose pliers and gently work it back and forth. Also, another suggestion to get the lines off, use a little bit of WD-40 or something slick that'll help it slide off a little easier. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom fuel line. Okay, nothing's dripping out. Now I have the carburetor itself. And I'll go ahead and get a pan and then we'll clean the carburetor. Now if this isn't something you do all the time, it's a good idea always to just kind of take a second to look at where the different screws are and how it's all set up. Also, it's a good idea to take pictures. That way you have reference when you put it back together. So what I'll do next is I'll take the, actually I'll spray it down and clean it up a little bit before I take it apart. But I'll take these 4 Phillips screws out, clean the primer bulb side, and then I'll flip it over and take these other 2 screws out and clean the metering diaphragm area. It's a good idea to have a rag because when you take this bulb off, there's going to be some fuel in there that comes out. Take these other 2 screws out. And the ones on the bottom are shorter. So we'll take note of that. Well, I was incorrect. The metering diaphragm's on this side. Carefully take that off so we don't tear it. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but that doesn't look too terrible. But nonetheless, we'll set these pieces aside and we'll take the other side apart, clean that out. Okay, that doesn't look too bad either. But it doesn't take much. A little clogged port somewhere to really mess this thing up. Okay, we're going to take the metering spring out here. There's a little Phillips screw in there. Another good spot to take a picture if you need to. Okay. Pull that out. Spring comes out. Okay. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. And then your needle. Okay, and we'll set all that aside. And then we'll go ahead and get our carb cleaner and start spraying out all the ports. So I went ahead and cleaned out all the small holes. I have this old piece of copper wire that I pulled from something, I don't remember, but any hole that fuel could go through, not the threaded in where the screws go, but any other hole. Went ahead and cleaned that out with this wire. Then I sprayed it with carb cleaner. Then I did it again with the wire. And if you have access to any kind of air pressure, you could go ahead and do that real lightly. You don't want to shove it too far down there where it could damage something inside the carburetor. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together, and we'll see if we'll get it running. So this next part might be the most challenging part of this whole process, and that is putting the spring down in while seating the needle and keeping the pin from sliding out, and then putting the screw down while keeping it all together. So this just doesn't happen quickly sometimes. And it might be frustrating, so you might have to walk away, but as you can see, I got the spring seated. I'm going to drop the needle in, keeping the pin from sliding. Okay, that's all in there perfectly right now. So what I do need to grab next is the screw. And luckily for me, I have a magnetic tip that I can start a while and then drop that in there, and it just twisted because it's magnetic. Son of a gun. This is what I mean by a little bit frustrating. So now I have to reseat the spring vertically, and that's magnetic. Let's pick that up. Now I have to grab the needle again and reseat that properly. Okay, that's in there. Push the pin over so everything sits down flush. Okay, now I can hold that with my thumb. And now put the screw back in. Okay, we're not going to overly tighten that, just make it snug. Next, we're going to stick on our metering diaphragm. And remember, the metal side goes down. This little hole is going to match up with the spring side hole. Real simple. Just like that. Grab our next part. Set it down. And grab 2 of our screws, and remember the shorter ones go on the bottom. And that's why I always say about taking the pictures so you can go back and reference it. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and grab our primer bulb. Set that back on. Then we'll grab our longer screws. And then we'll tighten that down. Now we'll flip it over, and you may have to grab this to twist it. So that works like that. That way it works around your idler screw. Just put a little pressure on it so that slides in. Line up the drops in like that. We'll line up the holes and put the other 2 screws back in. And then we'll remount it back onto the machine itself. Alright, so if you remember, the fuel line was the black one, and that goes on the bottom. So go ahead and pull that down and around. Oh, you don't go through there, come on. And we'll reattach that to the bottom of the carburetor. And the top one, well, they kind of both line up perfectly. Just like that. Reattach our throttle linkage. In there. And get our air filter housing cover, whatever you want to call it, back on. Just put in the 2 long Phillips screws, line the holes up properly. There we go, there's one. And we'll tighten those down. Okay, once those are snug, you can put the fuel back in or tighten the fuel cap. Now we'll actually get the fuel, or now we'll get the air filter housing back on. And if this is dirty, it's a good time to clean it or replace it, but this one's okay. Now we'll get it out here, prime it, see if we can get it to start. Alright, let's move you guys out here. Hopefully that'll pick up what we're doing here. Prime, choke it, start. Alrighty, I think that carb cleaning did it. So thanks for watching.